Um, I'm so excited to be here with you, Kristen. We get to talk about beginning ballet.
It's like my favorite topic ever in the whole world.
We talk about it so often in the studio, and we get to talk about it here out of the studio too.
Yay!
So for those of you who don't know, well, you may not know me either. I'm Julie. I own Broche Ballet, and this is Kristen, one of our fabulous teachers at Broche Ballet. She is one of our staples of our beginner program, helping people who've never danced before in their entire life get started dancing. So we are here today to talk about that experience from a dance perspective, because we both did it, and from a teacher's perspective as well. Welcome.
Thank you. Love it. Love this topic. It's my favorite.
Because you started ballet late. When did you start?
I started everything late. I am late. I'm a late bloomer. So I didn't start ballet till I was 31. And I didn't start dancing. I started tap dancing when I was 19, but I only did it like on and off, like college elective kind of thing for like 10 years. So I didn't really start seriously dancing at all until I was in my late 20s, 29 or something. And it's just been the most incredible thing because I never thought I would be able to do this. And I definitely never thought I would ever be able to like put point shoes on. If you had asked me when I was a sweet little girl, if I ever thought I would become a ballerina, I would just like laughed at myself because like, that's not like a normal thing. And you don't, unless you start early, it's too late. And all the things that people say, like I totally bought. And then it all turns out that's hooey and you can start anything whenever you want and be awesome at it, no matter what. So that's always encouraging.
There is so many reasons that people think not to do it, right? Should we list a few? Should we list a few reasons that we hear of people saying why not to do it? I can't touch my toes. That's a reason.
I mean, yeah. I'm not graceful. I'm too tall. I'm too fat. I'm too uncoordinated. Ballet is not a real job.
I have 2 left feet.
Yeah.
Yep. Never danced
if you didn't start when you were 8 or 5 or 3, it's too late for you.
Or 15. Sometimes people even feel like it's too late, you know?
Yeah, you'll never be a professional, so why bother?
That's another one we hear.
Yeah.
So many reasons. All wrong, right? All wrong.
Correct. They are all wrong.
Obviously, we're both sitting here at an adult ballet festival doing ballet for the entire weekend.
And it's so like, it's life-changing. Like if you can like harness the nervousness and like risk that it takes to be a beginner, like literally the universe is at your fingertips, because not only can you do ballet, but you could like learn to play the ukulele, or you could become a painter, or you could learn how to do calculus. I mean, literally, if you have the mindset that being a beginner at any age is possible and desirable, like literally you can do anything.
That's so powerful.
It's so powerful. And it's so much in your mind. It's so much in your head. And so you've got to like eject all those crappy voices that are like, you're too this, it's too late, blah, blah, blah. And then like embrace the idea that being a beginner is like the coolest thing ever. And then everything will change. Everything will change.
What are some, okay, so being a beginner as an adult is, we haven't done it in a while, right? Generally, we haven't done it in a while. Like, you know, you and I have, we started ballet as adults, or we've started things, but generally like an adult who's just gone through a career and has kids and like done the whole thing is like good at everything that they've recently tried. So what are some things that like initially suck about being a beginner that later become cool?
I think when the very first thing I thought of when you said what sucks about being a beginner is the very first thing everyone's going to think of is I'm behind and I should already know this by now. And that's so hard. And I think we tend to compare ourselves to other people and we're like, oh, well, that person over there, they're younger than me, but they know more than me. And so you do all this nasty comparison, which is not useful. And so I think the first thing you have to do is say, I'm going to only compare myself to me yesterday, because it's stupid to compare yourself to a younger person who isn't you. Like that's apples and oranges, like in the most extreme way. So compare yourself to you yesterday, and that mentality then becomes like the hugest asset, because then you're in this mindset of just be better than yesterday. And it's always a progress and a journey and that kind of thing. I forgot the original question.
I think that was an answer to the question. I mean, we
Okay.
talked like what, so it's one of those things where in the beginning, this mindset is so real, and I hear it all the time. Like, how come I can't do this yet? Or like, why can't I already do this? And I always say, why should you be able to do this? Why would you expect to be able to do this without having tried at it before?
Yeah.
Why would that be the expectation, right? And just challenging that in that way, where it's like, not only is comparing yourself bad, but like that thought that you should already be able to do this, like should is such a terrible word in this regard. It's like, why should you be able to turn your legs out? You're a person, they're attached forwards. Why should you be able to do this? Where did the expectation come from? But I think it's because ballet specifically looks so easy when you do it right. And so because it looks so easy, I think we find it, we think that it's easy for everyone else, but it's not. It's just a point to make it look easy.
Well, and I think it's important to point out, because as you were talking, I literally my son said those exact things. He said he gets so frustrated. He's 9, by the way. He gets really frustrated when he can't do something right the first time, because he's my child and we have like perfectionism in the family.
Well, perfectionism.
Right. So he's like, gets really frustrated with like, I don't know, he plays instruments and he does all kinds of things, but he gets frustrated. And it's the same thing. I say to him the same exact thing. Like, why should you be able to do this already? And so it's not even just a mentality that adults have. Like, I think kids also get that mentality, but they're better at like getting over it, because they listen to positive things that people say and they believe them. And I think as adults, we're like, no, I refuse to believe anything positive that you say. Don't tell me I can do anything. It's not true,
That's so true.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's easier to believe the negative, because I guess you've been saying it to yourself for so long that it feels more real than someone saying one positive thing to you. It's hard to overcome that negative, like, affirmation that you almost have about it.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
so funny. Yeah, I think that, to address some of the specific points that we talked about earlier without like not being flexible enough, not being, being clumsy. I think it's always funny to have the expectation that we should already know those things. We here at Broche believe that ballet will teach you these things. If you don't know how to stretch properly, don't be stretching at home yet. Come to learn how to stretch properly. If you never tried it before, it's like everything has a technique to it.
Yeah.
Learning how to be less clumsy has a technique to it, although I'm still very clumsy. When I walk Otis, we're tripping all over each other all over the street. We're both very clumsy. But when it's choreographed, I know which foot I'm on, and it's all deliberate, and that's its own set of skills that we learn in class. We learn all this stuff in class. We, at least at our studio, don't expect anyone to come in with these skills. It's all a part of the learning process. So it's all like a part of this process.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to be realistic about the timeline of this process. Like, it's a really long timeline, and it's like, I like get nervous when I tell people because they're like, "What? I have 10 years? What are you talking about?" But like, I had my very first ballet teacher. Some of you already know this story, but I love telling this story. We asked him, we're like, "Oh, are we good dancers yet? Ha ha ha!" And he's like, "You're not even dancers yet, not let alone good dancers." And it was like, but it wasn't like mean. It was just like, "Listen, here's the information that you need." And so we said like, "Okay, well, how long will it take for us to become just dancers?" And he said 10 years. He said, after 10 years of studying ballet, then you can call yourself a dancer. And after that, then you can call yourself a good dancer. And I don't that seems really negative, and I don't want to like freak anyone out, but there is something really useful about having a realistic timeline about this. Like, if you're starting ballet when you're 40, like, you have a lot of stretching and things to deal with that have never been done in your body before. And you can't like do the splits overnight. That takes weeks and weeks of like extreme small little changes every day. So just being realistic, and then knowing that it's going to take a long time. If you're like, "Oh, well, in 10 years, I'll be happy because I'll be a dancer." Well, then like that whole process is lost on you. And you have to say, like, every day, I showed up to ballet and it was so much fun, and I laughed with my friends and I got a little better and I felt really pretty for a second. And that is the moment where you take that and you say, okay, that's what this is about. This is not about 10 years from now when I like become a dancer. It's like the whole process.
It's so interesting, the timeline perspective. And I think a lot of times beginners start getting caught up with time very quickly. Like when will I be able to do this? When will I be able to do that? When will I get point shoes? When will I be able to do a triple pirouette? Like when will I be able to do these things? And I think that the time, like you said, the timeline is very long, and I think that that's encouraging in some ways, because it lets you be okay with the process where you're not expected to learn this stuff in one class. Like one thing I always say is perfection is a direction, not a location. Like we're going in that way, we're going down that path, we're trying to get there, but it's just one step at a time. And if you stop stepping, you're literally never going to get there. As long as you keep stepping though, you're like going on the way.
Yeah.
And so each step matters, like, but it's going to be many, many steps. You just want to start accepting that and settling into it and just enjoy taking the steps, as you're saying.
Exactly. And I think too, when I've taught dance for a number of years now, and I found that like it progresses in a stair step. So like you'll learn for a long time and you'll like kind of plateau and you'll be like, oh my God, I just cannot get any better. Mm-hmm. And then literally one day you will jump up to the next stair step and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm so much better. And you'll stay at that step for a while. And then eventually you're like, oh my gosh, why am I not getting any better? And then you'll stair step. And it's kind of cool if you work with the same teacher long enough, like they can tell like when you stair step and like all of a sudden you come in and you're like so much better. And it's sometimes hard for you as a student to see that you did the stair step, which is why those teachers like who can mentor you and say like, oh my gosh, that was it. That was a stair step day. That can be so encouraging to know that like after feeling like you're flatlining for a long time, like all of a sudden you made like a big leap forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. We have a question coming in on YouTube. How do you deal with the kinds of things where you don't know what you're doing yet as a beginner? What gives you the confidence to ask questions?
Oh, yeah. I think
that's a big one. Cool, I know. Makes me nervous just talking. I mean, the confidence thing is huge.
I would say, so I have learned, okay, so where to start? I'm 6'2", so I'm like a very big, ginormous person. And
that's beautiful.
No, thank you. Yes, I'm beautiful.
Obviously, just putting that out there.
But my whole life, it was like, okay, tall people in the back, go stand in the back. And like in the back, you're like freaking invisible and you can't see the teacher's feet because they're in the forest of the trees. And so I was invisible. And so one day I was like, F this, I am going to stand in the front, but off to the side so that I don't block anyone, because I don't block anyone. So I literally started standing in the corner of the room in the same row as the teacher. Like nobody else was standing in the same row as the teacher, but I was like way off to the side. So I felt like safe there. And then I realized that if I passively watched a class, I would miss it. I would not get anything out of it. And like, we're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to take these classes, and darn it, life is too short and money is too precious for you to miss it. And so the number one thing that I found is that you ask a million questions. You stand in the front next to the teacher off to the side and you ask 1,000 questions, because you need your money's worth and you don't have time to waste. This is the moment. And teachers love when you ask questions. They want you to ask questions because otherwise they're teaching to a brick wall. And as a teacher, that's horrible.
Totally.
And if you don't know what you're doing, like fake it till you make it. There's a great saying in tap, fake it till you make it. And if you fake it long enough, you become a teacher.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So fake it till you make it and ask questions, and learning what are the right questions to ask can be really helpful. So example, so much of dance is about where your weight is. So if you're struggling with a step, that my number one question when I'm struggling with a step is, where should my weight be? Am I on my right foot or my left foot? Should I have the weight in the ball of my foot or in my heel? Should I be transitioning off of this foot or should I stay on this foot a little bit longer? That's like your tier one basic question is like, where's my weight? And then beyond that, like, did you catch the transition step between those two things? Because those little things can really get you. So knowing what kind of questions to ask and then just let loose with those questions.
they're so important from the teacher's perspective too, because when you get a question, then you know two things. You know, number one, if you're explaining it well enough, because the question coming back to you, like, oh yeah, I didn't mention that. That's a super important detail that we need to talk about, right? Because as a teacher, you have so much knowledge that you're trying to disseminate, and sometimes you miss a point. And it's like, oh yeah, actually, that's super important. You're on your left foot. Let's talk about that, right? Like that's just a huge point to make. And then the second thing you learn is based on the questions that are being asked, you can tell where the dancer is in their journey with it. So for me, giving feedback to dancers, the more questions they ask, the more I know about what they know. So if you ask me a question about where your weight is, I know that's what you're thinking about. But if you ask me a question about what's the combination, then I know that's where you're at, and I'll tailor my points to that. So that gives the teacher so much feedback. And if the teacher is not having it or doesn't like it, then maybe, find a teacher who enjoys the questions. Like it's so much, there's so much. I always think that this is such a back and forth where you need to be able to feel like you can ask questions. Even if it's after class, you have to feel like you can ask these questions to have that back and forth, because how can you learn something without the interaction?
Yeah. And so I had a teacher once who shall remain nameless. She was an extremely famous tap dancer, like number one, very famous tap dancer who shall remain nameless. And so I'm in her class and a friend of mine asks a question and she goes, "You do not ask questions in my class." And everyone was like, "What?" And she was like, "I haven't taken a tap class since I was 16. She's like 90 years old. "I haven't taken a tap class since I was 16. And I was like, "Well, that's why you're a terrible teacher, because you don't remember what it's like to be a beginner, and you don't remember how important asking questions are. And who are you that you can't answer somebody's freaking question?" So like, I never took a class from her again. I refuse to take any classes with her because I don't need that. And I think you'll find the people who make you feel safe. And if you don't feel safe asking a question in a class, like run as fast as you can, because those people are not the people who you want to be your mentors. They're not good for you.
I think you make some really good points on that, where it not only does it actually takes confidence to walk away from a teacher who's not working for
Absolutely.
you. It's really easy to take that personally. Yeah. And it's really easy to take that personally and be like, I did something wrong here. I'm the one in the wrong. But really it's not the right fit. Some people will like that teacher, but it's not the fit for you. And having the confidence to just say, like, that wasn't for me. It's not about me. It's like when you're trying on jeans at the store and they just all look terrible on you. And at a certain point you have to be like, these are the jeans. This is not me. This is the jeans problem. Get rid of these jeans. Like, they don't work for me. My body is fine. These jeans are not going to do it for me. Like, you have to have the confidence to walk away from that situation and not let it crush you. And then to connect it to the point you're making about this being a long road, if you feel discouraged along that road, you're going to leave it. You need to be with people who are going to help you through it, because it's a long game, it's a long journey, and you need to have support throughout the way. So you have to set yourself up for a supportive environment and be a part of it. Be a part of somewhere that's going to help you through this journey, because when you really are in that kind of environment, it's very transformative and can really help you change as a person.
The other thing I would say about that is I think it's helped me a lot to keep in mind as a student, like, I am the customer. Like, as a student, like, I pay people money to teach me things. And so therefore, like, I am the customer, and the customer is always right. Not in that you did your technique correctly, but that if you need something or something is not working for you, you're the customer. Like, you take a product back if it doesn't work for you. Like, you don't buy a pair of jeans that don't fit and then be like, well, I guess I'll just suck it up and like wear these jeans anyway. Like, you take them back. They're not for you. And so if you're the client, you're the customer, you're paying the money. Like, I am literally paying you money so that I can ask you questions. So if that financial mentality helps you have the confidence to ask the questions, then do it.
That's right. I want to hear a little bit about your journey to flexibility, because flexibility is a big question we get about beginners. I can't touch my toes. I'm not flexible. I'm stiff. I'm old, whatever like point it is that people make about their flexibility. And you've had quite the journey with flexibility. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So when I was a kid, so I'm 6'2". I was always like the tallest human at school. Like, I was taller than the teachers and I was taller than all the guys. And when we did like the presidential fitness test and we had to like do the reach test, they measure from this box and I couldn't even like touch the box. I was inches away from touching the box. And this woman's like, you need to stretch forward because if you can't touch the box, I can't take a reading. And I was like, well, I can't touch the box. So like,
I had the same thing. They had to measure off the box for me too.
Yeah, this is so many of our experiences, right?
I know, traumatizing.
I get older and I'm like this enormous person who's got like legs for days, and how am I supposed to touch my toes? I think the number one thing is, gosh darn it, you have to want that so bad. You have to want to touch your toes so, so, so bad. And then you have to make a plan, and then you got to stick with that plan and realize it's going to take a while. But I like just started little and stretching every day, stretching just a tiny bit, stretching in front of TV, stretching while I listened to music, anything that like would distract me from the fact that I hated stretching. And then over time, man, you just get addicted to it, and then it's not hard anymore. I've also like used tools, like I roll my legs with foam rollers and balls. I just, for my birthday, I got a Hypervolt, the little.
You got the little poundy thing?
I did. Noel got it for me for my birthday. So you have tools, right? So it's not like you're alone on this journey in the wilderness without a paddle. That's a mixed metaphor, but you're not, there are tools. There's also other people. So like get a massage, go to, we have in Colorado, we now have Stretch Lab, which is like my favorite place on the planet. It's like people will stretch you for you. They'll just take your leg and like stretch it. And so like, getting somebody else on your goal and saying like, okay, person at Stretch Lab, I would like to be able to touch my toes. And then they have knowledge and they can help you, physical therapy, like all these things. So have some tools, have some friends, have some goals, and want it. And I think it's totally achievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that being able to touch your toes is such a funny goal. And especially those of us who couldn't when we were kids are like super shamed about it and feel like when you were a kid and you couldn't touch your toes that you're like a bad person or like sick or like injured or like whatever it is. I mean, you're 12, so like, right, abnormal. You're 12 and everyone else seems to be able to touch their toes without having tried. And you're like, well, my legs grew 8 feet last night, so I can't touch them.
Totally.
Like, how am I supposed to touch them? My hamstrings are catching up to my bones, you know? But then you feel like broken throughout that process.
And I think too, then as we get into our journey to ballet, you know, we're watching pictures, we're looking at pictures of ballerinas, we're watching videos, and like everyone's got the, 180-degree splits in the air and all that stuff. And so in our minds, we equate those positions with good ballet. And if we can't do them, we cannot do ballet. And so I think it's really important to know that like a lot of those people are not, I don't know, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? It's like not normal. Like that's not a normal thing to be able to do, like 180-degree splits while standing on one leg.
Certainly not without having worked for it. Like basically is.
Right. I mean, like probably 0.1% of the population can do that. Right. So like as normal people, like who are doing this because we love it and this is our passion, like that's not the goal, people. The goal is something less than that. And so I think we need to divorce the idea of like doing it right and doing it good as having these like extreme positions. And if you look at the history of ballet, historically those positions were not even done because like then little, crotches are showing and stuff. And so historically, it's only in the last like 50 years, 40 years that we've reached these extreme positions.
And beginning ballet really isn't about that. Like in the beginning, I think there's a huge misconception that if you can't touch your toes, or you can't get your leg by you can't do any of it. And that is so false because when you're beginning to learn ballet, what you're really learning is how to change your motor function of your legs, right? So your legs are designed to move this way and we are making them move this way. That's basically the gist of what we're learning in ballet. Yeah. So to get your legs to move this way, they don't need to be up here. That's irrelevant to getting them that way, right? So basically you're saying that you're taking the muscles that are normally the dominant muscles in how you walk and you are sticking them to the side and putting new muscles as the new dominant muscles. That's like basically relearning how to walk, relearning how to stand, relearning how to function as a person, relearning how to step from one foot to the other. And that's like the fundamentals that we learn at the beginning of ballet, and flexibility is irrelevant to that. We gain flexibility over time. We get flexible because class includes stretching because it's important to have elongated muscles for safety. But like learning ballet is not about that. It's about not even close to that. That's like a cherry on top once you've learned ballet.
Well, yeah. And I think too, like, we want to be pretty. We want to have that pretty line. And I argue every day in my classes, you can have the most beautiful dégagé that goes to 10% off the ground. You know, you can make the shallowest plie, you can make that so pretty. You can make any of it so pretty, and it doesn't have to be high to be pretty. And like I don't need my leg to be in my ear, but I do need to be pretty. And so for me, like, I need to figure out, how do I make, you know, this 25-degree grand bama, how do I make that pretty? And it's like, you know, the stretching and the lengthening and the intention and where you put your arm and how you look, you know, how you look, and all of those things does not require the flexibility that we sometimes think we need to be pretty.
It's all about telling a story. It's about making someone feel something. That's the whole point of performing, is to make someone feel something. And, you know, I think the best analogy is like where I've watched, you know, sometimes you'll go to class with an older teacher and they can't do what they used to be able to do in their body. They can't get their leg up higher. You know, they're older, maybe they had some injuries, whatever it is. But they are sometimes, I mean, they're the most beautiful dancers you've ever seen. And they're doing like low legs. They don't have a high arabesque, but like they give you chills sometimes when you watch them. And it just, I mean, you feel it. And if they can, I mean, if they're that beautiful, it's clearly not about height. It's clearly about passion. It's about technique. It's about the internal emotion that you're able to put onto your body. And it's not about the height, because they're the most beautiful to watch.
Absolutely. Oh, my first ballet teacher, Andrew Thompson, is like, oh, so gorgeous. And he's in his 60s and he's got a hip replacement and all this stuff. And oh my gosh, literally, like, he could have me weeping at a centered combination. It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, the expression really is what it's all about. It's not about that.
Yeah.
We got a question on YouTube, which is, how do you know when it's the right time to be mentored? Do you have to get to a certain point in a relationship with a teacher in order to start asking for mentorship? No. Great question, Rachel. Thanks for asking.
I have so I have a dancer who I like worship. Oh, and I like YouTube stalked him for a really long time. And I felt like he was too good for me, right? Like, I was a nobody, I was a plebeian, I was just like starting out as a beginner, and why would this like famous person want anything to do with me? And so like one day I like put in my passion planner, which is like my long-term plan, dance with this person, right? Someday. And so then I ran into him at a festival, and I was like, I just have to tell him that I put this in there. So I went up to him and I told him that I like had put this like crazy thing in my planner, that I like someday wanted to dance with him. And he was like so honored and flattered and like touched, and that I wanted to work with him and that I resonated with his style, that like now we're friends and we like chat on Instagram, and I take classes with him every week. And we have like all these inside jokes together. And I flew to his house and stayed with him for a week, and like we worked in the studio every day together. And it's like, I wasn't anybody then, but I was like a person that cared and wanted to be with this person. And so that's what matters, that you have the passion and the desire to work with somebody. And again, if somebody's like, oh, you're not good enough, when you're better, come and talk to me. That's not your mentor. You need to find somebody else. I had a writing mentor once tell me that you need to find the people who make you feel like everything's going to be okay. So find those people, and then it doesn't matter who you are or where you are in your journey. Like, tell them that they're the one, and that they make you feel okay, and go from there.
Huge. It's all about the right person, the right relationship. It's as teachers, when someone wants to learn and someone's really passionate, I want to help them. It's just as plain as simple as that. Like, I am always thrilled when someone wants to get better at what I love and what they love, and share that connection with them. And it's always super special. And it's like, I think this time being everyone at home but online, I think I hope helped with some of that intimidation, because we're really getting a chance to have more connections with people from their homes, and from people who previously have been too busy. Like, we're getting to have class with professionals. We're getting to have live class with people who didn't get to have class with. We're getting to really experience things we couldn't before. And I hope that people will take this chance to connect and try new things from a little bit more protective of an environment, being in your home. and take some of these risks, because people are out there right now and people want to connect and they're hungry to connect. And it's like, if there ever was a time to try, like now would be it. Now would be the time to try to do what you wanted to do.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
So why should someone start ballet? Why, like, so someone's sitting here watching us and is like, I always wanted to try, but I'm scared, or I always wanted to try, or I never even thought about trying, but you can convince me. Why should someone start it?
So I'm gonna get a little emotional here for a second.
Okay.
My mom died. Okay. My mom died when I was 26. And so when I turned 30, I realized that if I lived as long as she had lived, that I would have already lived over half my life already. And so it was like such a serious wake-up call. And you know, you hear people talk all the time like, oh, when I retire, I'm gonna do all this stuff. Like, there's no time, people. There's no time. Don't wait.
So that didn't even make it to retirement.
She didn't. Well, she retired the year she died because she didn't want to be working when she died. Right. But like it's too late. And so you, like, if there's a bucket list, if you have a bucket list, like right now, today, yesterday is the day you should start it, because there isn't time. And maybe that's doomist, and maybe you're not that kind of person, but like, it's not going to get easier. It's not like all of a sudden one day you're going to be like, okay, today is the day, but now everything is okay. And now I can start doing all these things on my list. Like, no, yesterday was the day, and you start it right now. And there's no reason not to. And there's no reason to wait till you're older and you don't have time. So that's what I would say.
It's funny you mentioned it's not going to get easier. That is so true. Especially if you already feel like you're too old or too inflexible, you're not going to get younger, and you're not going to get more flexible. Like, unless you start trying to work at it, right? You're not going to get younger no matter if you work at it. And if you're not going, you will have to work at getting more flexible. So that's not going to happen automatically. So you might as well start working at it now, the goals that you have, because it's not going to, the circumstances won't change unless you change them.
Right. And I often think, like, I do this lamenting a lot, like, oh, if I had started when I was 3, or if I had started when I was 19, or if I had started when I was 25. Right. And so I have to say to myself, you know what, like, okay, I'm 39, which is older, but I'm younger than somebody who started when they're 50. And somebody who started when they're 50 are younger than someone who started when they are 60. Right. And someone who started when they're 60 is younger than somebody who started when they're 65. You know, so like, you're always do it right now.
Just start, yeah. Waiting for the time is right. You know, we get a lot of people who want to start the studio, and we hear like, well, I'll start once I get my new job, or I'll start once my kids go, whatever. I'll start once this thing happens. There's a lot of I'll start once blah, blah, blah happens. We hear that so often. And I always try to encourage people that, you know, the time, you're not going to have more time one day. There won't be a time when you have more time. Even now, when everyone's at home, we don't have more time necessarily. Like, if you've got kids, you have way less time. If you're at work, probably you're way busier because you're trying to make ends meet and hold it together. There's no time in which you will have more time. And it's all about priorities. It's all about what you want to make time for. What you do first in the day is what you prioritize. I know you get up early and do your writing. I know I get up early and do any of my creative work that I need to do. What you do first is what you prioritize, because everything else will just fit into the rest of the day. So it's not like there's more time in any day. It's just a matter of how you order the things and what gets booted at the end of the day. So if you always get booted at the end of the day, there will never be time for you, no matter how much time is in the day, because you're always last.
Yeah, and I think I'm waiting till the circumstances are right is actually not the issue. I think the actual issue is that people are afraid. And honestly, like, people make excuses. Like, when I'm afraid, like, to improv, I'm so terrified of improv. And so my teacher's like, oh, you need to practice improv this week. Oh my gosh, I have to clean the toilets, and I have to, you know, it's like I could literally think of every possible reason why I don't have to stop what I'm doing to go improv. And it's the same. If you have 10,000 reasons why you're not going to do something, it's probably because you're scared. And there's nothing wrong with being scared. We're all scared of things. And fear is just so very real. And you need to just honor that and name it and be like, hi thing, I'm afraid of you. And this is why I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid people are going to laugh at me. I'm afraid to get in a leotard. I'm afraid that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm afraid I'm going to be a beginner. Name it. Say it out loud. I am afraid of this. And then think about all the reasons that you want to do that and why they are more important than that fear. And what's going to happen if you show up and you mess up? Like, what are you going to die? No, you're not. So these are the things that you have to start weighing in your head. But unless you can name the actual root cause of why all of a sudden you don't have enough time to do all the things you want to do, like, it's never going to get there.
That's just so powerful. I mean, just naming the fear really puts it in its place. And usually once you name it, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
What if they laugh at you? I mean, maybe you're funny.
Well, and I always
say, like, you know, it's okay, like, what can you do?
What's the worst that could happen? Okay, I go in there and I like fall down, and then I get up and I throw up, and then I fall in the throw up, and then my pants fall off, and like people are laughing at me, and then, you know, then they see it, whatever. Like, literally think about the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen to you, and then at the end of it say, would that be okay if that happened? And in the end, you're probably like, oh, that's a really good story. That would be okay. You know, I'm not gonna die. I'm not going to die if I throw up and then fall in it and people are laughing. I'm not going to die. I might not go back to that studio, but that doesn't mean I have to quit what I want to do, you know?
I think that's a really important point. And to put it with what you said in your last piece, which is like, you have to weigh it with, am I okay if I don't ever get to do this before I die, right? Like that, to get, you know, kind of back to your point, like, am I okay with throwing up and slipping in it? Probably not. But am I also not okay with never getting to learn ballet in my entire life? Like, if that never happened and I never got to do it, how okay am I with that versus how okay am I with this embarrassing situation?
Yeah, there's I don't know if anyone knows Tim Ferriss. He's like amazing, but he has this thing called fear setting, which is like goal setting, only it's like, it's really about the fear, and it's naming the fear. And then, just as we were talking about, like deciding whether not taking action on this thing that I want is more important than whatever perceived thing will happen because I fear, you know, the outcome. And he does that every month. He sits down and every month says, these are the things I want to do. Is the fear great enough, or is the fear of not doing it ever in my life great? So it's just a useful thing to think about, not just about the goals, because we get all misty-eyed about goals, but I think it's also important to like name the fears and realize that they stop us.
The mind just gets in the way of so much. I mean, it gets in the way, but also it's getting in the way for a reason. It's trying to protect us. It's trying to save us. And we need to recognize that it's not like bad or wrong. Like, it's just trying to help us out. It's like, you probably don't want to slip in that throw up, so I'm going to help you out and just kind of stop you there, and we're just going to not do that. But then you have to be like, okay, all right, let's let that be and continue anyways.
Yeah, but you know, I think fear is not good at weighing consequences, right? So
that's true.
If you do a pirouette, your brain is like, we're gonna die, so let's just not do this. And then the consequence that actually happens is like, I fell out of a pirouette. But the reward of doing a fucking amazing pirouette, like, that's so much greater than the actual consequence of falling out of a pirouette. And it's certainly more true than dying from doing a pirouette, you know?
Absolutely. The fear is so not helpful in many ways. So black and white.
And it's irrational. It's like irrational. Yeah.
Right. So funny. So I guess if someone wants to get started with ballet, right? They want to get started. They want to give it a try. What should we tell them?
I think you should go try it. But I do like really, really appreciate how hard it is to go to a dance studio as an adult and be in a class of children. Like, I agree, that's not, I wouldn't have done that. The only reason that I ended up in a ballet class is because there was an adults only class. And so I think that's really important, is to find a place, because adults and kids don't learn the same. Kids are really obnoxious. And so finding the right place is like a really big deal. And that's hard for people who are not in a big town that has a lot of options, and adult programs are scarce or small or under, they don't take you seriously, right? You like show up for adult ballet and they're like, oh, aren't you like cute little housewife yoga moms? Like, do these plies and that was nice, you know? And it's like, no, but I really want to do ballet. Like, I really, really want to learn how to do ballet, and I don't want to do it with children. And so it's hard. Like, the struggle is real. Move to Denver and go to Broche Ballet.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, these online classes have been amazing because you can really shop around geographically and find people that work for you. And I know that like Broche is just so good at understanding these things and not putting people in a situation where they feel defeated. But I don't know.
I think one of the biggest challenges that I had when I was starting was the idea of not being taken seriously, where I really wanted to learn ballet and I wanted to have it all. I mean, I wanted to have all the things, right? Like you don't start ballet of the people I've met, you don't start ballet to like go halfway.
Right.
Like people who are interested in ballet are like interested in ballet. Like that's sort of been my experience. I think your experience. I think many of the experiences of people who come to our studio locally, because ballet attracts those of us who really like to go all in, learn the details, get into the nitty gritty, and the idea that someone would not think that I should care about that was always difficult for me to understand when I was starting. And I think that was a big deal for me, was to find that. So I pieced my own training together, combining group classes with private lessons. So I would take a private lesson once a month and then go to group class and practice what they told me. And then I would go to another private lesson once I thought I had practiced enough. Because obviously, I mean, you can't afford private lesson every week. I mean, it adds up real fast. So I would just supplement it to get taken seriously, and like getting a mentor and getting someone who would take me seriously, and then using the lower cost options to practice and kind of try to apply what they told me. And I think that was because it was so important to me to find somewhere that would take me seriously and really teach me the technique. That was always super important to me as a dancer, to really help me along the journey.
Yeah, I totally agree that private lessons are like a real big, like a huge thing. And like I would, in terms of budgeting and everything, I think you get more bang for your buck in a really good private lesson every other week than in taking a really mediocre class like every week or 2 times. Yeah. Because then you can ask those questions. You don't feel like you're slowing everybody else down, and it's really tailored to you, and that person is taking you seriously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's not always an option for people, so it's hard.
Yeah, it's tricky. We do have one question, a whole area that we didn't address too much today, which is someone returning to ballet from a lifetime away from it, which is awesome. We have so many people like that in the studio who are coming back after a long time, physically limited by injury, and not able to do releve on one of her feet. Is it okay to still attend?
Oh yeah.
Totally. We would say totally here. I mean, there's a good teacher should always be able to give you modifications, let them know what the problems are. You know, I can't do this on my right foot. Okay, great. We won't do that. We will do other things.
And we'll help you figure out, like, it's not that you'll never be able to do that on your right foot again. You might be able to incrementally get slightly better. And it's about strengthening and alignment and all those things to problem solve, like what needs to be done. I think too, it's important, like if you return as somebody who knows what they're doing, so you would not consider yourself a beginner. I think it's important to realize that, like, in a way, you are a beginner in your adult body.
It's a different body.
Body and your adult brain are like really not the same as your child's brain and your child's body. And so sometimes it's super frustrating to come back and be like, well, I used to be able to do this, and I used to be able to remember combinations. Like, well, that's you're a beginner in a different body and with a different brain. And so like embracing that process and being like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know the vocabulary and all this stuff, but like there's a lot of beginnerness that will still happen. And so you got to be forgiving of that. And so, yeah, demanding, you're the client, right? You're the customer. You go in there and you say like, you know what, I'm doing ballet and I have this limitation, and I'm in a way starting over because I'm an adult body and an adult brain. But like from there, like just go in and kick some ass, because that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that this whole conversation about a specific injury limitation is, I have the same feeling about it like I do when I was talking about flexibility. Like it's not about having your leg up to your ear to do ballet. It's not about those things, and you can still be doing ballet if you can't lift one of your arms over your head. You can still be doing ballet if you can't be up on releve. You can still, like, it's not about those things. It's about the expression. It's about the beauty of it. It's about putting your heart out there for people. It's not about the physicality of it. I mean, obviously that's part of the training, but like that's not what ballet is about. Ballet is not about that stuff. And you want to be able to find a way to do it and find your expression and all of that without those things. And the right teacher should be able to help you find that without, like, with working with where you're at, meeting you at where you're at as a dancer and as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what other options there are. Like, I just don't I guess I don't get how like any teacher can like go to a student and be like, well, I expect that you'll be able to do releves on both legs, single, like period. Like what, okay, I can't. So that's not your right person.
Right. I agree. It's not it. You've got to be in an environment where you can modify it as you need to, and have a teacher who believes that it's not a modification. Have a teacher who believes that it's still doing it, right? It's not that you're doing half of it or doing a quarter.
Yeah.
You're still doing it. You're still dancing. You're still expressing yourself. Let's see. One more comment from online. We've got.
Oh, it's a person.
How you doing?
Hi, is this the correct Zoom?
Not quite. Or you're early.
Okay.
But if you want to talk about being an adult beginner, that would be
wow, that's what we're talking about. What was the last time you were a beginner at something, Wes?
Tap in college.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, that was humbling.
For sure.
Ooh, wait, I've even got a later one. In my professional career, beginning Lindy Hop dancing for Marguerite Derricks for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and she had all the partners dance individually, and we had no idea what the basic was, and we had to dance for 2.5 minutes, and no clue, no idea.
What was that? So we're talking about how it's like amazing, but also terrifying to be an adult beginner. So what was that like for you?
Well, it was exactly those words. It was amazing and terrifying. I loved that it opened up this new perspective for me to be like, oh, I know nothing about this whole world. And that's exciting. And now I want to learn. And after that, I started to go to social dances every weekend. But it's also awful because you see what it is and you see people have success and you see people look really comfortable and smooth. And you're like, I could do that. That's like, I could do that. And then it like happens and nothing is produced. And you're like, this is not correct. I just feel wrong. So that's the hard, but it's so good. I think finding new ways to being a beginner, it only helps it just helps you accept things, right? So you don't get so stressed or so mad at yourself because you're not, like, the perfectionism goes out the door.
That's so true.
So true. Basically just summed up what we took 45 minutes to come to. So well done.
I'm sorry. I'm very early. Yeah, I'm 2 hours early. I just realized. So I'm going to take the time. I'm going to make up a new combination. I think that's what's happening. So thank you for letting me jump on.
Well, I'm so excited.
Advice.
Yes, we're so excited to take class with you in 2 hours. It's going to be so fun. We're all going to feel like a little bit of a beginner, which is awesome and always so good, especially for us teachers to do on a regular basis so that we remember what everyone else is going through. And we don't forget what it's like to be like, ooh, don't look at me.
Yes. And I think it's just the safest time to do that because Zoom meetings, it's just you and the teacher. And most of the time the teacher is kind of, for me, there's so many different distractions. I'm just looking to see, is everyone swaying together? Great, we've done it. But it's so cool because I've been able to take classes and taking heel classes and other things that are really out of my comfort zone that I'm like, I would not be caught dead doing this in public, but I'm not in public. So work.
That's right. Exactly. I took a hip hop class. I mean, I would never go into the studio, but I was like, I'll be far away from my camera. So it'll be fine.
You're like, okay, cool. I'm ready for class.
Definitely. Totally. There's so many benefits. I feel like in a Cambrai forward, you can just be like, oh, my camera froze. I'll be down here for a sec. I swear I'm on time with the music.
Yeah, and then when you start crying in class, you can always go down to your feet.
That's right, exactly. It really is a safer environment. I feel like I've been wearing things that I wouldn't wear out because sometimes, you know, you don't know how the clothes are going to move, but it doesn't matter. If there's a problem, you just turn the camera off. It's a very private environment. It's a great environment to be a beginner, honestly.
Yes, it is. Wonderful. Well, great to meet both of you, and
Yeah,
I'll see you very soon.
We'll see you in a couple hours.
Okay. I'll be ready. Bye.
Oh, that's funny. See you later. We're all beginners at Zoom. Let's just put that out there. We're all beginners.
Amen. My dad had a Zoom chat last night for the very first time, and he talked for 16 minutes without stopping. And I'm like, Dad, that's not how this works.
No. We can handle about 2 minutes at a time on Zoom.
Yeah, sharing is caring.
That's right. Well, I guess we'll leave everyone with just some inspiration that we, especially at our studio, are so into adult beginners at whatever it is you're being beginner at. Like at our studio, Kristen started teaching piano class. We've offered a ballroom workshop. We've offered contemporary. We really believe it's important to be beginners at stuff later in life, and that it just builds a huge amount of confidence out of the studio too, in your real life, as Kristen mentioned, with the power of being okay with being new at stuff and knowing that you can be new at something and then be not new at something, and that's a process in and of itself. So we here are just super supportive of anyone who wants to be new at something. We're so here, whether that's online or in Denver, we're so into it.
That's true. That is true. Preach it.
Well, we will see you guys for Fun and Games Hour in just about 25 minutes. We're going to have some fun here with the Broche team, and we will see you guys there. Then we'll have a super fun concert tonight, so don't miss it.
Thanks for joining, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Get started with dance.